This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Red lights on. Yeah, and I realized when I sent them, I thought when I sent the agenda out, I sent it to Cassie as well. I'm just not sure if she can make it or maybe she's out of town. Well, let's start it here too. Recording this. Okay, everyone's ready. All right, we're officially recording now. All right, so welcome to. The date got a little screwed up on here, but this is the Monday, August 15th, 2022 meeting of the Easthampton Energy Advisory Committee. Jamie Paquette, the chair, bringing the meeting to order, joined by Tony Dawson and John Pepe, members of the board or the committee. I guess we will pass the agenda. We'll skip the approval of the minutes because we haven't had a chance to circulate those among all the members for review.
And I'm just going to make the statement that actually the May minutes also need to be.
Right.
Do you want me to send those out at this point?
Yeah, if you just want to send them to everybody.
I'll send those out. Okay.
So, yeah, Connie will circulate those to the committee members for approval. We can officially approve them at the next meeting. For
Okay.
May, for June, and then also maybe for today.
Yeah, and then I'll disseminate the one I write for today when I get it done. Yeah.
Okay. Super. All right, so we do have public speak time. There are no members of the public present, so we will go on to the next slide. Just add a quick thing here on hybrid meeting updates for anybody that's watching this after the fact. We do now have the ability to run hybrid meetings. Well, members of the committee as well as members of the public to attend remotely through Google Meet. So we are doing that right now. It's a good test. So everything seems to be up and running. The city has put that into place to help increase accessibility for all of these, which I think is great. Hopefully we'll either ourselves or other people taking advantage of it. Maybe you're going to be in Italy next. I'll be a little late at night for a committee meeting.
That's going to be great, true devotion if you actually attend that meeting.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about meeting dates. We have to push that date, just depending on everyone's availability. And for now, we've kind of settled on these third Mondays, 5:30. We could potentially move them up a little bit now too if remote is an option and that works for people. So we'll discuss whether that's working or whether we stick with this time. Nice to have consistency, but it's also nice to make sure everybody can make it. That is the balance that we're trying to create here.
Yeah.
For municipal aggregation, next thing on the agenda. I know we've had a little bit of slowness last time.
I actually talked to someone today.
Great, and I talked to Belchertown. I know, last time we had agreed to some people to split some stuff up, and maybe we were a little slow getting to that. And I saw your note that you were doing other stuff, so that's totally fair.
I would have. I just thought I had thought it was covered by 3 people.
Well, the real problem is people don't respond because I did try to contact the guy in Brookline. He just hasn't responded. Maybe he will, but he hasn't. But do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, tell me
so I spoke to
about
Carolyn Brennan, who's the Healy Town Administrator, and she was not there when they originally set up the program with Good Energy.
Okay.
She's worked there for 3 years, and it's been going on longer than that. So she really couldn't give a lot of feedback about how it worked when they first set things up.
Okay.
But she said that she thinks that they're good communicators, that they've been very helpful in any issues that she's had. They've been very helpful with. And they are very good about contacting her whenever they're sending out any communication to the community so that the town knows ahead of time. And they are very good about maintaining communication and giving them information about things that need to be put on the website for this. So she said she has no complaints.
Okay.
And I asked her about whether they have materials available for, if we want to do tabling or something. And she said she has never tried to do that, but she thinks they probably do. So the only thing she said was a problem is that they have found that a lot of people are very confused by the opt-out aspect of the program. And she said, particularly senior citizens are very confused about that. So that's something for us to know about ahead of time, that we really need to think of ways to help people understand exactly how this is going to work. But I would say she was a positive review.
Okay. So I talked to...
What town is that?
Hadley.
Hadley, okay.
And I talked to Jim Berry from Belchertown, who is a member of the select board there, who actually, I guess, worked for DOER for a long time.
Oh, interesting.
So was kind of on the other side of things. They're only a little bit further ahead of where we are.
Oh.
And that their select board also just earlier this year approved stuff, and then they went through a process with Good Energy and one other consultant that they were considering. And so, yeah, they don't have an active program in place yet. They're still at the phase of like getting the plan together to go to DOER and then to DPU. But they have officially signed on with Good Energy to do that process.
Did he say why they chose Good Energy?
He said that it was very close. He said both of the companies that they were talking to had good experience. They both worked out in Western Mass. I think they had maybe looked at one or two others who ended up not responding to them, and maybe were only focused on like larger towns. But that the reputation of both was good. They both it was very close. He said he wouldn't have really cared either way. From a personal standpoint, he said he liked Good Energy a little bit better, and that was the choice they made. I think their presentation and their materials overall was just a little bit more impressive and just felt better to them. He said they've been great to work with so far. They really understand the process. They know, again, they're not really through a lot of it, so they're still working through their public notice. But they actually, because they're a town, theirs had to pass town meeting.
Right.
Their approval of the aggregation altogether, which he said could have been a challenge, but they only needed 50%. But even if they needed 2/3, he said they would have passed it.
Well, that's good to hear.
And Good Energy, helped them again with some of the talking points. The opt-out was a sticking point, I think, for a few people, that wanted to know more about that. I don't know if it was like confusion so much as just like not really liking that aspect of it.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Is the opt-out choice, which I think is a good idea, is that required as part of doing municipal aggregation?
It is. That's the state mandate.
It is.
It's
Okay.
an opt-out. Yes.
Oh, good.
So
So it's out of our hands.
It's the state dictates that
Okay.
because
Okay.
they know that if it's an opt-in program, it'll be so
It'll
much
just take
harder to
forever.
get it implemented. Right. So it's an opt-out.
Okay.
Basically, the way they ran Mass Purg in the 70s, and were subject of lawsuit from libertarians and whatever, because we wanted a positive checkoff rather than a negative. This is essentially also a negative checkoff.
Right. Yeah, but they know, especially for towns like ours, like you need that aggregate mass of customers to make it,
Right. Right. Okay, so how many references do we need?
I don't know. That's 2. We have Winchester and Brookline that we can still try to get, because, not to jump ahead too much, but the update on the review by the city solicitor, I don't have an update on that.
Okay.
Now, I tried to, I messaged Lindsay about it. She's out on vacation right now, so I was trying to get an update on what was happening. So I do not have one. So we're not really anywhere. Well, we're a little bit closer
But
to it, I hope.
we really can't vote.
We can't vote on anything right now anyway, so.
Let me go back. Let me just see because did we say that we could, I thought that we said last time that we could vote on using Good Energy before the contract was determined, because that's sort of a separate issue.
Right.
Like we can say we want to work with Good Energy, and now we have to get a contract that works for us. So we could vote on it today if we wanted to.
Wasn't that also because there was some umbrella legislation that covered this? No. are we taking a company off the state bid? Is that? the state
No, we don't,
contract?
we're not required to do an RFP or do anything. We can do
Right.
whatever we want at this point. This was when the mayor was here saying, hey, could you get some references?
Okay.
And, and let the solicitor review the contract.
Okay.
Those are kind of the two stipulations to the next step was like,
And,
let's-
and what we're really talking about is just, we got 2 references, is that enough for us to vote that
Right.
we will continue with Good Energy rather than try to find another option?
right. I would say, because we don't have the solicitor's feedback yet, we won't have that probably until the next meeting, or we won't be able to do anything about it until the next meeting. Let's hold off on voting.
Okay.
Let's let, again, we can get this information from what we're putting here into the minutes for
Yeah.
now. And I would like, Misty and Maren to have a chance to just do more of that and have a chance to have a say in it, at the next meeting if we
Okay.
can get them here. We do have a quorum, so, we could, but I would just,
I'll tell you the reason
There's not a
I'm
reason to
feeling,
rush.
like pushing it a little bit, is I did get in touch with Arcadia, and they would love to have us table at their folk festival. In fact, I ran into Brittany, who works there, and she actually approached me about it before I managed to talk to her about it. They are asking for, like, Mothers Out Front is going to table there. I don't know who else they've asked, but that's on September 17th. So if we were going to do that, I feel like we need some help with materials from Good Energy if we're going to use them. And I don't know if there's enough time if we wait to say we're going to work with Good Energy
right.
to get them to help us with that tabling.
Yeah, I don't know that we're ready to go to do like a public campaign around
You don't
this
think
yet
we
either
are?
way. I don't know that we are. I think we have enough other things that we could
So
do.
well then we can talk about that later then when we get.
Yeah, I think we can
Okay.
talk about that. I'd love to talk about that.
Okay.
I think we're just caught up in
Okay.
vacation.
Okay. So we're
stuff
gonna
anyway,
wait.
so let's wait to review. If we can get the contract approved, if the city solicitor says, yeah, this looks good, or here's some minor changes, then we can say, okay, we've got these references, maybe we can get another 1 or 2 in the meantime.
Okay.
Let's just cover all the bases so we can take that and say to the mayor, okay, the solicitor says this looks good. We say we've heard good things. Let's go ahead and get this contract with them signed.
Okay, so I'll contact the guy from Brookline again. And I called him, left a message, and I sent him an email, but I've only done each of those things once.
Right.
So I'll harass him.
Okay, and I didn't have a chance to reach out to Winchester yet, but I will try to
Do you
do
want
that.
me to just do that? Do you want me to just
If you want
send him
to.
an email?
Yeah, if you want to reach out,
Okay.
that's great.
Okay.
If you want to just take that on if you have time.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'll just mention the other thing, when I talked with Jim at Belchertown, he mentioned that, one of the things they took pains to talk about, and which is good to remember too, is, if you go out to bid for the energy and you don't like anything that comes in, you don't have to do it. Right? Like, we're not required to sign a contract and set up a whole program if we don't like the way it is. And he said, maybe, he's like, we can't officially join forces, but if the timing aligns and we could both kind of go out at the same time,
Well, we
they would
could
have to.
officially join sources because Amherst and Northampton and Pelham, I think, are joining forces.
You have to do that application process with.
I forget it. Okay.
I think we would have had to approve it even at the city council level
Okay.
to have it as a partnership.
Okay.
So we would have to go back if we were going to do that, to do it in conjunction with them. But
Okay.
he said, if we can time it so that we're going out at the same time, we can see that might make it more attractive for a company to
Okay.
give slightly better rates, or there might be ways we can help each other and learn during the process as well. So he was really nice. He was willing to be a resource to
That's
talk
great.
to and learn or just bounce ideas off of if we need to. And they're similarly sized out. He said again, there's always going to be that cadre of people that kind of complain and are against things that maybe you can't ever placate. But
So true. So does that mean that it would make sense for us to, when we go out to bid, coordinate with Belchertown for timing the first time around,
yeah.
so that we have the best, and sort of let them know that we're hoping that you're going to give both of us a good deal here.
Mhm.
I don't know how good, because won't Good Energy actually be the ones who set out the bids?
Yeah, they will do that. And there's a process before that, there's public notice.
Right.
We have to be able to, put stuff out there for people to comment on.
So it's really up to Good Energy to
They'll
push
walk us
them.
through the process for
Yeah.
sure. The other thing I guess they mentioned, or he mentioned, is I guess they put together maybe even a separate committee or like group to oversee the process. That's like, not, it wouldn't necessarily just be our committee, but we could have people from here and maybe somebody from the mayor's office or maybe somebody from planning or something like that, or
Actually, that's a
Castle
really good
That would be
idea.
like a separate little committee that would oversee
Is that
the
what they're
whole
doing in-
process.
is that
That's what they're doing in Belchertown, yeah, I guess. And I forget exactly how it's made up, but it's, 4 or 5 people from different parts, because, again, we can do some stuff, but again, because we're
Yeah.
volunteers, so that's worth having a discussion maybe with the mayor.
With the
about, like,
mayor, yes.
Can somebody from your office be
I think that's a
part of this?
really good idea.
Yeah. Maybe somebody else, from another department, plus 1 or 2 of us to do
Yeah.
that. So we'll keep that in mind and see if
Okay.
maybe that's something we want to create. And I don't know what that means. It wouldn't necessarily be a separate committee of the city that needs to meet and like do that. I'm a little unclear on how logistically or legally.
Well, does Belchertown have an energy committee?
Something like that, yeah.
They do, but this is separate.
But they're like, a select board and a town meeting thing,
Right.
not like a mayor, city council.
Yeah. Why don't we
kind of
see
thing,
what
so.
the mayor thinks about
Yeah.
it, whether it's just unnecessary bureaucracy or whether it would be a good idea.
Yeah, maybe it can just be sort of like a working group, kind of thing that doesn't necessarily have to have like official meetings and like public comment.
Because Hadley's town administrator is the person who is sort of the go-to person, which makes sense.
Right.
So
Yeah, it
it
seems
does
like-
seem like it should be somebody in the city.
Administration, if
Yeah.
there's going to be
Right.
complaints that have to be handled or removing people from, they opt out at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like a legal, I'm sure there's ultimately some legal liability for the town about following the process properly, and that having it on a volunteer board is
Yeah.
probably not going to be sufficient.
Yeah, because we should have that figured out ahead of time and know who the administrator
Well, that's a
is
good
that we will be in touch with.
Maybe Cassie.
Right, like who would be the
Yeah, because she
person?
doesn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
But that's a good question, is like, who is the person at the city? Like, once the program is up and running, who's responsible for administering it on behalf of the city?
Right.
It's not us.
No.
It's, it would be somebody on the city payroll that would be the go-to person for
Maybe
questions or
DPW.
whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. So that's a good question for the mayor as well.
Do you meet with the mayor regularly?
No, I've only met with her when she's come to our meetings.
Okay, I just was curious.
Well, what about a different question, just communication about what we're up to in progress and stuff? Have you had some conversations? Have you?
Once in a while, I'll send stuff to Lindsay here and there,
Yeah.
but generally, unless there's something really notable,
Yeah.
I haven't done. But
Okay.
Well, Misty did make the point at our last meeting that we need to be sure that we're keeping the mayor abreast of what's going on. And I guess there is a question of exactly how we should go about doing that.
About sending her the minutes.
Actually, that's not a bad
Potentially, yeah.
idea.
I mean, we could highlight some
Of
things.
course, they're available if she wants to look at them.
yeah, maybe
But-
we pull a couple highlights from each one and just like send them to her, or send them to Lindsay for easy
So
digestion.
do you want me to do that since I'm the...
Yeah, if you're
taking
doing the minutes, if there's a couple
So
things that you want to
just,
highlight each time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And maybe, if in between now and the next meeting, if, get some feedback from the solicitor and we've got the references, try to invite the mayor again to have this conversation about, okay, what do we do from here? Like, let's get the contract done. Let's get is it a committee, is it a board? Like, what is it? Who can we put together? What are the requirements going to be for them?
And will the
who's
lawyer-
going to run this?
Will the lawyer contact you once he's looked at the contract?
I've not had any direct
Okay.
contact with the solicitor, so, I was asked to send it through Lindsay, and so that's why I followed up with her.
Okay.
I mean, I sent it to her originally, and it was like, well, the fiscal year isn't done, but we're
Right.
overbooked, so
Right,
you can't
right.
spend any time right now. So that's why I was hoping in July, August.
So we're really
Time.
expecting the mayor's office to inform us when the solicitor has given his okay to the contract.
Right, or any comments or edits or
Okay,
whatever,
okay.
yeah, so.
But that's just something maybe I should say to her when I send her an email. It's like, we're assuming that you are the contact person with the solicitor and will let us know when we can move forward.
Yeah, and again, I think we've been asked to send stuff through Lindsay, like Lindsay being sort of
Right.
the centerpiece
Right.
of that. But yeah, she'll have an email from me when she's back from vacation.
Right,
That I
right.
just said last week, but yeah, she's out, I think, all this week as well. So.
Yeah,
And then I'm on vacation next week, but we'll hopefully get it all, get some feedback. I mean, it's not a super complicated contract, so I
right.
hope that
And
it
it's
doesn't
a
require-
contract that they've used, that Good Energy has used before, so,
Right.
although you never know.
Yeah, so let's see what kind of progress we make. If
Yeah.
we can do that, and I can invite the mayor to the next meeting to give an update and talk through that process, that would be great.
Okay.
And then I mentioned on here, once we have a contract signed and approved, maybe that's the time to do a press release.
Right.
And that can be like the first phase of our public outreach, getting the word out that this is happening beyond, kind of what's already been.
So it'd be a really good idea, I'm just trying to think about this, because the mayor wanted feedback about Good Energy. So she probably feels like she's not going to, even if the solicitor says the contract is okay, she's going to want information about the references.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we only have 2 at this point, I'll send her information about those 2 references, because it'd be nice to try to keep this moving along, and if she feels okay about the references, then she can sign the contract, and hopefully that might happen before our next meeting.
Well, I mean, we still wouldn't have signed off on it as the committee.
Oh, do we
wouldn't
have to
voted
sign
for it.
off on the contract?
We don't have to, but if we wanted to give our blessing through the committee
Oh,
votes,
I see, okay.
that would be at the next
Okay,
meeting, and then we can be signed.
So the next
right
meeting,
after
we
that.
hope that the solicitor will okay the contract, then we'll vote about whether or not we want to use Good Energy, and then we'll ask the mayor to agree to sign the contract, and we'll have given her the references.
Right,
Okay,
that's right.
okay.
So, okay. Yeah, so as far as like some of these new initiatives, and John, do you want to talk? I didn't get a chance really to look at what you sent around earlier.
Yeah.
But why don't you take us through
Okay.
what that's
Well, since our June meeting, I guess, is our last one.
Yeah, it's end of June.
I've been continuing to talk with the transportation manager at Northampton, Tammy Lieber, who has been pretty active with this. We almost got a chance to go down and take some of her bus staff for the school's bus program down to see an electric bus that was the small size bus that would work for Northampton's program down in Connecticut, and I never heard back on that one. But so we've been talking a lot. I checked in with Nick, who was the Northampton transportation person, who's now the Easthampton business manager.
Right.
Had a little conversation with him about what we're interested in and comparing Easthampton to Northampton, and asking about information from the contract. I guess he has not. I suggested that we at some point would like to see how the school committee views the possibilities around electrification of the buses, and he said he himself hasn't had, I got him, I think, in the first week on the job. He hasn't had a chance to meet the school committee.
Right.
But, he knows the system over in Northampton, which is good. He seems supportive. I can go in and get the bid information. I haven't managed to get down here for that, for the details of the Durham bid. For this
Can I ask
next
you
3-year
a question
contract.
about Durham?
Yeah.
I just went online because I wanted to understand I wanted to know where they were. Are they part of the national Durham company, which is actually owned by a corporation in England?
I think that sounds right. That the ownership sounds right.
Because they actually have participated in some events in favor of electrical vehicles for buses, so they actually might be more open to our asking them to participate in grants or other things than I thought. I thought they were like a local company.
No, you're right. I think they have 35,000 buses nationally.
Yeah, all over the country. Yeah.
They don't have a lot of activity around electric buses, from what I can tell.
Well, they've been at several conferences where and they sponsored a conference that had speakers about electric energy. It may just be show. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things on the to-do list is to try to arrange a meeting with the vendors and some kind of like who. I kind of feel like but let me get back to that. So the other thing I worked on was I met with Chris Mason finally, who's like, according to my bus company boss, I mean, Tammy Liebner is the kind of energy guru in Northampton. Very nice guy, and we went over a variety of topics. They apparently he wasn't quite aware about some of the things that needed to be done or decisions around electrification of buses in Northampton. Like, he hadn't really heard that the school committee there had said no more diesel buses.
Really?
No more. He hadn't heard of that, so he was going to check it. He gave me a little bit of information about experiences of other towns dealing with the utilities and getting chargers in place, and mentioned that Montague was one and also has Eversource. Northampton uses National Grid. Right. They had some problems in Montague, really extreme demand charges, high demand charges from Eversource.
About paying, about what?
Setting rates, right? The rates that they'll be charged when they're drawing energy from the grid based on the price at their highest time of use or something like that. It's a little complicated, but it's going to be important how that works out for these for the whole electrification program, is how they do that. And anyway, so he also talked about their ESCO, a little bit about what they did with their ESCO.
I'm sorry.
Who's our company again? I forget. The energy services company.
Here,
the one, the big, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, that's
the energy contract here. Honeywell. They had their equivalent, program.
Are we saying Montague or Northampton?
Northampton.
Okay.
Still talking about Chris Mason conversation. Gave me a little bit of.
So they worked with Honeywell as well.
He didn't say Honeywell. I don't know if I even asked them about who did it. He just said it went pretty well. It wasn't great. But I think they spent somewhere between $4 and $6 million on their program, which for
and that was like retrofitting.
Same thing as Honeywell's looking at our wastewater treatment plant, water system pumps, things like that. He really was supportive of the idea of a couple things. One is just get the representatives of the schools and the bus companies together and tell them, this is where we're heading. What are you guys going to do about it? What can you offer us? We're going to start seeing it in the bid document soon. And also, what was the other part? Yeah. Anyway, he liked that idea. It's not all that involved. There is no citywide task force. That I think it was an idea of Tammy's that it would be needed, but it hasn't happened yet. So there's a little bit of disconnect there in Northampton. So that conversation, I did this webinar that World Resources Institute sponsored. They mostly focus on foreign international programs, development programs and environmental programs, but they happen to have a big focus domestically on this electric bus initiative, and they're providing some really good resources. Put on a webinar. The webinar wasn't so great. I mean, I didn't learn a lot. They had several practitioners, cities, counties in Maryland and in Minnesota or Michigan that had experience with transition to electric buses. It was interesting. It was marginally useful, the webinar itself, but they have a good website with a good sort of manual, how-to manual for
And
what
so
the process
website-
involves, starting from scratch to get to the point
And
of.
what is the website address?
It's just World Resources Institute will get you there.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, they're the ones who even have a sample. I think they even have a sample, a model PowerPoint presentation where you can kind of fill in the blanks about your local, you know, giving a general theme about electrification and why and what's involved and benefits and the risks and stuff. And so I've been doing that, and then I've been trying to put together what the whole picture is and what we should be doing. And so that's what this little write-up I did was looking at our 3 to 4 options for directions, and then but also backing off of that a little bit and saying, well, those are on paper, those are options, but the city-owned bus fleet does not look like it's worth looking too seriously at because we've got no experience with that.
Right.
And I get the feeling when the mayor said in our meeting that, you know, there's no reason to have publicly owned buildings anymore, you know, municipal buildings, that there's not going to be a lot of upper level support for publicly owned buses and infrastructure.
Right.
So so it's really about the third party companies like Highland. I think Proterra's another one that does it. Highland was the one that just kicked off a big program. I think it was Montgomery County,
Maryland,
that they've got, you know, it's like bringing on 40 buses and they're going to get to 120. I mean, it's a really large system. Anyway, working with them or working with our local vendors for them to deal with the purchasing the buses, getting the grants, figuring out the infrastructure. There was one good piece of interesting news in terms of financial aspects of it that I came across, which is that Proterra is a company that designs, at least, not they manufacture, electrical bus technology, and I think they also do some contracting, as I understand it, kind of like Highland. I'm not quite sure about that, but they must, because what they said is that they would sell, they're starting a program where they would sell a battery electric bus about the same price as a diesel bus would go for.
Wow.
But you lease the battery. So you pay a lease amount on the battery area. They still own it. They're responsible for it. If something goes wrong, they replace it. They retire it after, 10 years or something, and they get to do what they want with it, which they have some uses for.
The battery itself, but the rest of the bus.
Yeah, the rest of the bus is what you own, and they claim that the battery is 2/3 of the cost of an electric bus.
Yeah, I wonder what the charge is for leasing. But that sounds like a good idea.
Well, it helps defray the upfront cost,
Yeah.
which is what's discouraging I think a lot of municipalities from, and the other thing I'm concerned about is that I think we mentioned it before, that these grants, though the Inflation Reduction Act may beef this up a bit, we'll see, and maybe you know about that, but the current federal bus grants, $5 billion program, is enough to get like less than 1%, some fraction of percentage of all the buses, school buses, transition. So, maybe it'll bring down the cost of the whole process, and they buy and sponsor 100,000 or 20,000 buses with that money. That's enough to, just like solar technology, get the price down, and then it doesn't matter that there's no grants, from the federal government.
Right.
We can actually afford them. So I'd like to, what I was planning on doing, I wish there were other people to work on this with. I am with, other committee members, I should say, and there are people like Tammy Liebner. Maybe I'll be working with Nick if takes this on. I think we do need to talk with him as Dale's, successor, and
like look at like a joint program or something like that potentially.
Well, either joint programs or joint meetings, hold something together where a public information event or just a closed meeting between the vendors and representatives of the school departments and our committees. They are to say this is this is where it's heading. This is our towns are really looking in this direction, and future bids may reflect that. And what are you doing? What's your experience with this? What are you doing? What do you see as the obstacles? That kind of stuff. I want to talk more with some of the cities and towns that have been running the systems, like talk with Amherst, talk with Cambridge, Amherst, Beverly. Those are the main ones.
Are those the
Mass.
three that have the pilot program going right now?
I don't know if you call them. There was a pilot several years ago that they were all involved.
Ongoing right now as
There's
well.
a program. There is a three.
Oh, it's in Vermont.
Burlington, or up northern Vermont. There's a three manufacturers are supplying their vehicles for testing for pilot, and Tammy was trying to keep track of that. Chris Mason said he knew somebody up in Burlington he was going to call. We were supposed to start hearing results about how well they did in the winter. One of the webinar speakers from some upper peninsula, whatever, upper Michigan or Minnesota, I can't remember, county, said their buses did fine in the teens, and whether that was in the teens, it wasn't a big issue. Anyway.
I'm sorry I keep interrupting you, but so the pilot program started in the fall of 21. So they went through the winter already.
Yes,
so
yes.
they should have the results.
Yes.
Okay.
If Chris, I'll talk to Chris, and if he hasn't had any success with his contact, I'm ready to call up there myself or have Tammy. I would like to take maybe the World Resources Institute's template for presentation, doctor it up, and get it ready so that we could go to the school committee to talk about this. So we could go to the school department or for the public. Have some basic information and have it all in one place. I'd like to work on that.
Didn't you say, is this where I read something that you wrote, that Highland would do presentations?
Yes, they will. They will, and that's another, either what we could probably get sooner than an organized public panel or meeting where other multiple school departments are involved and committees, is they'll just arrange to do a Zoom thing for 15 minutes with us and basically present what they offer right now and answer questions. I mean, we could do something like that probably.
I guess the first question is...
For our committee, or
for us.
Okay.
Oh, that's,
Would we want
and
them
then-
to do it for like the school committee?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Well, that's a big question, is do we want to work with the school committee, find people on the school committee, Marin maybe, or people he knows on the committee, who believe in the possibilities of this and want to see it happen, and have them sort of try to appeal and advocate within the school committee? Or do we come to them from the outside, from the Energy Advisory Commission, and kind of cold and say, here's what we're thinking, what do you guys think of these opportunities? Are you interested in seriously pursuing this? And who should we work with?
And this is kind of a good time to do it because they just signed a contract. They're not going to have to do anything for 3 years. So if we sort of take advantage of the timing and say, here's some information.
Yeah.
We've been looking into it. We want to share the information we have so far, as opposed to telling them you have to do this, or we really want you to just sort of like, we just want to let you know what we found out.
Right. And also, at some point, maybe we can bring in some of the, you mentioned the name of somebody with the no idling, stop idling, anti-idling campaign in the city too, to help advocate for electrification.
Yeah.
Do they want to do some work on that too, or do they just want to say no idling? Let's get rid of the diesel bus. Don't worry about the idling. Get rid of the diesel bus.
I think they're kind of separate issues.
Can idle all you want in an electric car.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the other thing is to get all the grant and rebate information all in one place. But I'd be more eager. We missed the federal timetable for this year, which we would have an application in by what's today? A week from now.
August 15th.
Yeah, and we're we don't have the support high up
too
enough. The school
soon.
department's not involved. it is a two-plus year process, but I think if we don't waste time and talk to the right people and organize support, then it's possible for the next cycle, when this contract's over, that something could happen. Right now, grant-wise, I'd like to pull that information together, and it may change with the Inflation Reduction Act. But
Right.
so far, the emphasis on the grants has been environmental justice communities, and
Right.
with the definition of communities that have 20% or more. I can't remember. This one was the
Low income?
income bracket. Yeah, the
Yeah.
income bracket, and we don't qualify.
Yeah, there's like Easthampton, and it was some of the environmental justice stuff that maybe feel like with the River Valley Co-op thing, like you have to be an environmental justice community, and some parts of Easthampton somehow qualify for that.
There is one
Yeah.
section that qualifies,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like right off of Cottage Street, or Union Street, I guess. There's
Okay.
that community back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sense is for a federal grant, you can't say, well, this street on our town is low income, so
Right.
we should be eligible. I mean, I don't think
Right.
And, well, what about, are we considered a rural community? Because there's grant, there's grant money for rural communities as well.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think
I
we're.
feel like it
Yeah,
might
that's a
be.
good question for Cassie, actually.
I'll look at that too.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. So anyway,
Yeah, so with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's definitely money earmarked for electric buses specifically. I think electric vehicles, larger, but also buses. I think there's a call out for that.
yeah.
I don't know all the specifics. Yeah, I mean, I sent some links around. I've digested.
You already sent them out?
I sent them.
Okay, I saw something.
Previously, yeah, it was at the end of a long message. I sent some links
Okay.
to.
All right.
I can just.
Yeah, that's all right. I remember it being there.
Yep. It was, there was some. I have trouble finding it. There were a few different things that were talking about different parts of it. One was like more environmental justice related. One was about tag for heat pumps and solar and like lowering energy bills. It was like for environmental justice communities, and then there was another stuff for like clean energy provisions. So there's a lot of different stuff in there. Plus, there's also the state level, the climate bill that Baker just signed as well. So I don't know what might be in there at the state level. Certainly, we've seen other places in the state acting on this. Boston's got a big plan, and like some of the other communities we've mentioned. So there's there may be some opportunities with that as well.
Did this guy that you talked to was a selectman of Belchertown that worked at
DOER.
DOER, right?
Mhm.
Did he work? What aspect of it did he work
I have to check my notes. I forget.
Probably
exactly.
no. I mean, I think it might be worth at this point just trying to make contact with DOER and find out about what they know that's going on in our area, what the possibilities are.
DOER is not the most open, useful group.
Yeah, they have a lot of power though.
Mhm.
Right, but I'm not sure that they are good resources. That's what I'm
They
saying.
usually have, maybe I'm mistaking them for the Clean Energy Council, but they usually have people in any of those big agencies who do outreach about grants and
Oh, do they? Oh,
yeah,
that would
they
be
outreach
great.
about, this is eligible, encouraging communities to do pilot programs, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think maybe I'll ask Chris, who would be a good person to speak to over there.
Okay.
So-
There's going to be. I mean, there's also new tax credits in there for like electric vehicles, just as like, something that we could do. Separate from the bus thing, but even just like additional promotion around.
Yeah, I wonder if Cassie's up to speed on it, because it's her area.
It's a good question.
And then the other thing,
Imagine
like,
she is.
about all this that I'm sure the school committee is going to be concerned about is the whole issue of the employee. Like, if we have our own buses, then we have to hire the bus drivers.
Right.
And we have to insure them and all that stuff.
Right.
Which is why I think we would be better off if we can somehow get Durham to buy electric buses. It would be so much simpler. And
Probably
so,
the first path to follow, and meanwhile you can talk with the third-party ones,
Right.
with that one, well, that's what you're talking about. We'd still have to, even if it wasn't a public system, with Highland, we'd have to hire staff, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, we can at least
Although,
find out what the deal is.
I was looking at some websites, after I looked up Durham, I ended up, Durham has been involved in some electrical bus stuff, because from their website, I ended up in some other places, and they're actually, I think, talking to Highland as well. So, you know,
That'd be good.
it's really in their best
Yeah.
interest to figure out how
Yeah.
to get their
Yeah.
fleet electric too,
It's going to be long-term, right?
especially if there are grants available.
If they're not talking about it at the corporate level, yeah.
I'm sure they
yeah,
are.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah, and you know, the more we say, you know, every community that contacts them about it and says, we want you to do this, the better. But it would be interesting to know exactly whether they're just saying they're interested or whether they really are, you know?
You talking about Durham?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the corporate Durham,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is maybe going forward, what I kind of need to know is whether it is permissible, advisable or not for me to call up as in an exploratory fashion, call up to say I work on it with the City of Easthampton's Energy Advisory Commission. We're exploring topics that I would like to know what you guys are doing. We're not making any representations on the behalf of the town or saying that we've made any decisions or committed, but purely information gathering.
Yeah.
If I felt comfortable that was not a problem, well, I already jumped the gun a few months ago and called Highland and got some information. But Highland, Durham, the state DOER people, I'll start calling them
That's
on
okay,
that
we're just
basis.
trying to get information.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't that be
absolutely.
okay?
Okay.
And then meantime, I think that's totally fine. You should absolutely do that. And do we want to look at, you know, upcoming school committee meeting, like target one that maybe we'll like just try to go even like during public speak or something like that.
Yeah.
And just, you know,
Yeah.
say, hey, remember, we're part of this committee, you know, and
Yeah.
we want to get this on your radar. Like, we think, this is
Yeah.
the way the world is moving. This is, we have
Yeah.
a few years before our contract is up, but we want you all thinking about, going forward, how do we
How often do they
implement
meet?
this?
I think they
More
meet
than monthly?
monthly.
Maybe more
They
than,
do
they might
monthly.
be every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I don't know right now. I have to look and see what their schedule
I mean,
is.
it'd be great
It's
if
possible October or November. I mean,
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
have that president. I mean, I got a month before I leave, and then I'm gone a month. But October,
Okay.
November, I could have a PowerPoint presentation ready, and all this other information gathered now that I'm talking about working on. I will continue for the next month to work on those pathways that I was talking about.
Okay.
I would think the big issue for them would be, is this really a likely prospect? Or is this, like to really demonstrate to them there's money coming from the government, these companies are really interested,
Yeah.
the buses aren't as expensive as they were, so that they can see, okay, maybe we could do this,
I think I calculated, I don't know if I threw it in there, that our program, I recall, based on the routes, the route miles,
Mm-hmm.
and the number of days and times they do it a week, there's something like 250,000 miles of bus travel for the Easthampton school, will be in for the Easthampton school system in the coming year with this new bus thing, and using up something like 50,000 gallons of diesel
yeah, yeah.
in the process. But I'll call Marin and see what he thinks about how to bring it up and what an appropriate
Okay.
type of presentation would be, off the cuff like you're talking about, or get it on the agenda or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
that'd be
you for
good.
doing all this work, John.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for what you're
I
doing.
think target, if we want to target like an October, November date.
Yeah.
And not to jump ahead, but since we're going to be gone for the next meeting,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I don't know what everyone else's schedule is. Do we want, if we moved it up to the 12th, would you be able to be there?
I think so,
for that?
yeah.
Would the
Yeah, I
12th
heard
be
you
okay
mention
for
that,
you?
yes.
Probably, we're talking September.
September, yeah, if we just
Just
move it
double
up.
Yeah, that would give me time to get
Before
some of
we
these
turn it
contacts made and to bring back some more.
Yeah, I don't know how this might affect the Google Meet thing that Karen was talking about, and like the continuity of that.
Once we're hybrid, we're always hybrid. I mean, you can't just say, okay, we're going to.
No, they'll give us a link every time.
Yeah, I can do the 12th.
But you
can
can't
do
say,
it.
okay, for whatever reason, we don't want to do hybrid this month, we're just going to do in person. You can't go back and do that.
I don't know. I mean, I know I could. I think I could choose each
But why
each
not do
meeting.
hybrid?
Yeah, I mean, it just allows the public to call it or somebody to call it if they want to.
Right.
I mean, it also means they have to run this technology.
Do you want someone else to learn how to do this? Is it like,
It's not too complicated. I don't know. Karen was here to
who
get...
taught you?
Karen, you missed her.
Oh.
She's in the IT department upstairs. So they've set this whole thing up to log in with each of these. I mean, at some point it might be useful for somebody else to do it. It's not too onerous, really. So they've got everything kind of in place to make it somewhat easy. All right, so let's change that to the 12th. We'll get that notice out. We'll keep.
And are we still doing 5:30?
Well, that's another open question. I'll see if 5 or 5:30 is preferable for people.
What do you guys feel?
I don't care.
I'd be happy to do it at 5. I mean, next time it does, it's going to interfere with a soccer practice for me either way. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter to me.
I don't suppose,
It's again, if
I can
5,
do
if people
either.
can do 5 and they want to do it remotely, and they prefer to do it remotely, that's fine. If they want to be in person and do 5:30, okay too. I just like maximum benefit of
Yeah,
attendance.
sure.
is there ever a thought that we should be trying to do early morning? Would people be able to do that?
I think part of it probably not as great for me. I mean, I
Okay.
could potentially. I don't think Misty works or Maren either,
Okay,
given
I'm
their work
just
schedules.
throwing it out as an idea. I can do either, so,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
works for
I don't
you guys.
mind moving it back up to 5.
Did you get I'm sorry, speaking of Misty, did you get a reference from, result from her?
More for one of the. Well, she didn't respond when I put the 4 out there and said,
okay.
"Hey, everyone want to claim one of these."
She said she liked homework. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to contact the two
Yeah, I
that
know.
we
Then
have.
I didn't get the response
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I'll do this one,"
Yeah.
or whatever. So.
Yeah.
So are we scheduling the next one for 5 or 5:30?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Let me poll
Okay.
the committee. Let me try to get Misty and Maren at the very
Okay.
least. See that we all can do either one.
Yeah.
So if either one of them has a preference for one or the other, I'm happy to make that happen.
Okay.
So that they can be there.
Okay.
Whether it's remote, in person, whatever.
At 6:30.
Yeah. So I do want Connie to get a chance to talk about the Arcadia. thing.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff we have to skip. Cassie's not here to talk about some of the things that are on here.
Yeah.
So like green communities, solar ordinance, the Columbia gas settlement, which is part of number 5 there. Honeywell RFP, we don't have any updates on. We can wait and see what the mayor says if we get her at the next meeting. So most of that stuff we can skip, and some of this stuff is sort of like public education. So let's wrap this up into what you,
Okay.
you want to talk
Well,
about with
I have used Arcadia in the past. Like I have tried to get a local climate group together in Easthampton, and so far really ultimately I have a whole bunch of names of people, which is not a bad thing, but we did have some events at Arcadia, and I'm trying to think, it wasn't maybe 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I tabled about gas leaks, and we had a whole presentation and stuff, and so I would be very happy to do it again. I mean, they couldn't be nicer. And Brittany, who I don't know her last name, but she's worked there for a long time, and Jonah Keene, who runs the Arcadia, and he also is like the person who's sort of in charge of like this part of the state. He's been very, very open. The Mass Audubon wants all of these sites to get very involved in climate change issues and to be involved in communicating with the community. So they would love to have us table. So the question is just very simply like, what are we going to? We have to have something very specific to give, really specific information. We can't just we have to really think about what is it that we want to say.
In order to get permission?
No, I'm just saying, we're going to have a table. We really have to be clear about what the point of having it is. Like, what is the?
Well, how
it can't
about
just be a lot of amorphous.
recruitment for the Energy Advisory Committee and our projects?
I think that's just a complete waste of time, frankly. I mean, we can
Why?
certainly have that be, oh, by the way, but that's not a table. I mean, that's why I would love to have it be about aggregation, because it's something, we need to start telling people about it. We wouldn't necessarily have to have it be part of good energy. We could just
Right.
say the Energy Advisory Committee is pursuing this, and it is going to happen. But I don't know, I mean, it would be great if we could be more specific about, there are going to be different options and, to really start telling people. The only thing about doing it there, I do have to say, is a lot of people who attend that do not live in Easthampton.
Right, it's a broader.
But what are you going to do? On the other hand, it's a great opportunity, I think.
It's like all day on the 17th?
Yeah, it's all day. Yeah. So I guess that's my question, is if we did take advantage of their offer, what exactly would we be presenting to the community?
What do you think? Aside from the sort of outlines of the community aggregation strategy. But you're big on doing it. What would you like to?
Well, I was thinking we were going to talk about aggregation. So because I thought it was a great opportunity. I'm not sure what that's why I'm saying I'm not sure.
I mean, it's possible we could have sort of multiple things there. I mean, maybe we could partner with, I don't know, either like a nonprofit or something like that, or like something energy related. Maybe we could do it, hand in hand with somebody that's like.
I don't know how they feel about having like a business, maybe a nonprofit. I mean, Mothers Out Front is going to be there, and they're. I mean, we could partner with Mothers Out Front, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I know some of those people.
Right.
Well, I guess we should think about it. I'll think about it.
Yeah, let's just.
I still say, since we're trying to get aggregation going, it would be nice if that's what we could focus on, is to get information out. But maybe it's not appropriate since we're not far enough along.
Well, let's do this. I mean, we just moved our next meeting before that now. So now we're meeting on the 12th in advance of the 17th. So let's brainstorm a little bit. When do they need an answer by a certain time that we would do?
Probably not.
Okay.
It's a pretty loose situation.
Okay.
The 12th is starting to get, if we have to pull stuff together, that's not, 5 days isn't very much time to pull stuff together. No, it's not. Well, that's what I'm saying. If we think about it now and start thinking about materials that we can have available, well, it might be aggregation related. Maybe there's some general stuff that we can have. I mean, there may be some, I know, DOER and everything has sort of like, what is aggregation? And you can have some of that, or just like have it there to talk to people
Bring in
about.
some mass save literature. Maybe I don't.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Mass save, any low, solar stuff, whether it's like low income
Information on
heat pump,
information on the
electrification.
Inflation Reduction Act. Details about. Somebody's got to put out a brochure pretty soon about all the things that are going to be.
Right, that are going to be coming from that, or any state level things. Yeah.
I can just tell you, having sort of done some of this in the past, it has to be very specific. It can't, people just.
Right.
If you start trying to tell them about the Inflation Reduction Act, then nobody cares about that, frankly.
Really? I think a lot of people care about that.
I don't think people at a fair are going to want to stop and talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. But if you can say to them, there's going to be money available for X in this town. I mean, what we could do is just, find out, just talk to the mayor about a lot of the things that Easthampton has done in the last couple of years, the solar panels, the school, that kind of stuff, and just, sort of blow the climate horn. I have done this enough times that I know, like, you have to have something that really grabs people's attention. Like gas leaks grabs people's attention. Actually, I'll tell you one thing that would be very useful to do, and we should do anyways, to talk about gas stoves. Because there's so much research now about how really terrible it is to use a gas stove in your home.
That's one of the grant programs under the Inflation Reduction Act.
I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing that we certainly could have as a topic, as an information thing. I'll ask Brittany exactly who the Mothers Out Front people are who are going to be there, because I might know them.
Okay.
And to find out what they're planning to do, that would be helpful too.
Yeah, and then let's see if there might be another, organization or something that's, energy related, that's not necessarily a product or a business that maybe could be part of this, that would have a specific program or a specific thing that might be like eye-catching or ear-catching or something like that. So, yeah, what do you want? Come up with some ideas.
I definitely will think about it, and I'll get in touch with I'll try to find out who the Mothers Out Front people are who are planning to do this.
Okay.
Because there is a very small group that's in Northampton, and of course part of Arcadia is in Northampton.
Right.
So I might know them. I might have run into them.
Okay.
So okay.
All right. So, yeah, sorry, in the interest of time here, I got to wrap it up for today. But we've got some next steps for the aggregation process. We moved up our meeting. John has a lot of more research and things to do on the electric bus initiative. We'll synthesize more information around what's going on at the state level, federal level, local level for information and outreach. I'll just mention real quick, one thing that the gentleman at Belchertown did talk to me about was like how they use the local media there, like the local like free newspaper. They basically like seed like an article like every week or at least a couple times a month into that about something, because he's like they just need content, like that they're based on advertisements and whatever, but they just need stuff to write about. So he's like, if you have
he's
a
a selectman, right?
I think so.
Is that the paper that gets thrown on people's sidewalks?
Yeah, they have one there called the Sentinel. I think we have the Reminder here.
The Reminder?
Yeah. So if people do read it, and one thing we could look at is like giving them some information about something to write about that's like locally useful, like energy related.
Might actually reach more people than Facebook website.
Yeah, certainly.
And that also reminds me, I think it was Kara, I have to look it up, sent me an email about how that she will help us put information on our page if we want to. But at the time, I was like, okay, but we actually don't have anything to put up right now.
From the city?
Yeah.
Karen?
Yeah, so
okay,
they will.
Person,
they will do that for us. We just have to figure out what we want to do.
Who was helping you? No.
Karen, Karin.
Yeah, that was the same person.
Same person she's talking about.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Yeah, it's the IT department here in the city. Yeah, that's great. So maybe there are, and that's where we'll get an update from Cassie. I know Cassie was going to look into the solar production at the schools and like how we might get that, but if we could like get that tied into our page.
Right.
On the website, that would be a
good.
good one, for instance, somehow. So next meeting, hopefully Cassie can join us and give us some updates on things there but a few things kicking around and some progress we made, and depending on what updates we get, I'll see if the mayor can join us the next time.
And then
if it need be.
Just very briefly, I said that I would look into the issue of stretch codes, the new stretch codes. They haven't finished writing them yet, and there's a lot of controversy because the group I believe it's the DOER that is writing them is trying to make it so that they still can use fossil fuels and that would require the stretch code, which is completely antithetical to the legislation.
Right.
So it has not been resolved,
Yeah.
and we'll just have to wait and see. So.
Yeah. It's just like the way in the Inflation Reduction Act, there's still things for natural gas and whatever, because they have to do that.
They had Manchin.
They had Manchin right there.
So I have a question about the minutes. Like, John wrote this long treatise about all the stuff he's found out. Do we ever attach things to the minutes, or do we want to attach things like that to the minutes, or no, maybe we don't? Like, what do we do with that?
With like
that piece
background information or whatever. I mean, if it was germane, I don't think there's so much of it that we've discussed that like needs sort of the appendix of that. I mean, I think it gets boiled down from what he found and like talked about in the meeting that's been
I might just
publicly
put into the
accessible.
notes what you wrote in your first email about the work that you've been doing. That would be easier for me to.
Just a succinct thing that
I have to also clear with Tammy Lever that I keep citing her and things with. I don't know if she knows I'm citing her over here in Easthampton. I don't.
So right now we're just. You sent that information. See, I'm just thinking about, isn't this all supposed to be public? Like, he sent us all that information.
Right, but not.
I'm very confused about that
piece. It's public if people want it, right?
But they don't know it exists. I'm very confused about that.
Well, they know it exists based on what we're talking about here, so.
Okay.
This is the public record.
Okay.
Right?
And if someone wants it, they can ask for it.
We can't deliberate things in private. We're not deliberating anything, we're sharing information.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're sharing information that then gets discussed at the meeting.
Okay, got it.
As members of the committee. So if it were like we were deliberating something or making decisions in a non-public
and there was a
forum.
document, like the contract may have to be made public at some point.
The contract will absolutely be made
Yeah,
public,
I
but
see.
that won't be
Okay.
us, because that's the mayor.
No, I
The mayor will
know.
be signing
I
it.
understand. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just,
So for us, if we're ever
It confuses
deliberating
me.
or doing something that requires, vote or that obviously all has to be public. In terms
Okay.
of like sharing information, talking about meeting dates that work for everybody, like
Okay.
that stuff can be safely done
Okay.
outside of a public meeting.
okay, so I'm going to send out the May, June, and this
Today.
meeting's minutes to
Thank you for
everybody.
doing those.
Yeah. And
If you
I am
get
trying to
really
make them
tired of them
shorter.
someday, I'd be willing to, not happily, but I'm willing to try to take it off, share the
No,
burden
be careful
sometime.
what you offer. I'll do it for a while.
I'm not very good at that.
And I'm
but
trying to
I'll
get
try.
them shorter.
Yeah.
This one is much shorter than the ones I did before.
It'll be shorter today too, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're at the end of most of the major stuff here. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion we adjourn.
Motion
And I'll let you
seconds.
know,
I second the motion.
Second.
and I'll let you know if I hear from Winchester or
Okay.
Brookline. Just,
All right, all in favor of adjourning?
I,
Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned.
okay.
Recording will stop. Put everything